Here's a tragic story for you. Once upon a time, there was a little VR game called Paradox of Hope, an ambitious shooter made entirely by a single person. A little rough around the edges, but with unique assets and a setting and gameplay not found anywhere else in the realm of virtual reality gaming. The frightening feeling of the post-apocalyptic underground was unmatched in this game. Updates were consistent, and over time it got better and better, less rough. My optimism and excitement for this game only went higher and higher as time went on. Paradox of Hope was often called Metro in VR by so many for its underground metro tunnel setting and generally oppressive Slavic vibes. Then, suddenly, it was gone. Destroyed by a DMCA strike from an unnamed company, and shortly after, an official Metro VR game was announced. Now, I'm no conspiracy theorist, but it wouldn't be too much of a stretch to see a connection there, maybe, possibly, though the source of the strike was never confirmed for certain. Anyway, that's all history now, because the one person developing Paradox of Hope, or who was developing Paradox of Hope, known as Nick Z, has just released a new VR game into early access on Steam called CONVRGENCE. Now I'll be straight up, I'm inclined to be a little more charitable to this game than usual because of what happened to this person. They had to create a whole new game just because a larger studio couldn't stand a little honest competition from one dev making a project by themselves. Not to mention I've still got plenty of Paradox Hope nostalgia that's been waiting for an outlet, and oh boy did CONVRGENCE give an outlet. This game is a lot like Paradox of Hope was, and despite being pretty rough around the edges, more rough around the edges than the previous game was, and having a setting that hopefully won't result in legal action, still slaps. So what do you do in CONVRGENCE? Mostly you collect stuff to sell, buy stuff, and use that stuff to avoid getting killed while you collect more stuff. It's a surprisingly entertaining loop. You've got a home base to store items and do your trading and get tasks to complete to upgrade your trader level to make you able to purchase better gear. Oh, and you can also clean your weapons, refill your water so you don't die of dehydration, eat some food so you don't die of hunger, pet your best bud, and add modifications to your guns. There's going to be more stuff to do there in the future too. You can also smoke a ton of cigs if that's the vibe you're going for. As far as I know, there's no cancer mechanic in this game, which is good because cigarettes are actually not the most cancerous thing you'll run across while you're raiding. Yep, I say raiding because that's how the game is structured. Once you're ready to hop over to your car and have a fun interactable driving loading scene until the procedurally generated level is created. Then you fight and loot your way through until you find an extract and stand next to it for a few seconds. Then you're back in the base, sell your stuff, buy whatever you need, yada yada yada, rinse and repeat. Oh, and if you do die during this process, you lose everything unless you have insurance. Then you lose everything except for what's in your backpack. Nothing in your backpack is ever safe. There are multiple different location types to go and raid with different enemies, dangers, and surroundings, and overall, I'd say the gameplay loop is solid. It's very similar to Paradox of Hope's previous raid mode, though unfortunately there's no story mode in CONVRGENCE, at least for now. Though it does rely heavily on procedural generation, so it does have the downside of seeming a little repetitive once you've raided a location type a lot. You'll notice patterns, especially now that this game hasn't been around for very long. I think like a lot of procedurally generated games with this problem, it will become a lot less apparent when more possibilities are added to the generation. Right now there's just not a whole lot of map pieces that can be picked, and enemies don't really patrol or do anything other than wait around until you get close to them. So I think with some updates, the amount of possibilities will become greater, and so the game will stay interesting for longer. As it is, I became very tired of both level types after around 3.5 hours of play. The Garage Collective didn't pose a challenge at all after I got used to it, and the underground levels are more of a stealth than a combat challenge, and so right now they're really just an exercise in patience and pathfinding. Why? Well, because if you wake up any of these absolutely horrifying looking demon humanoid creatures, then all of them wake up and immediately zero in on your position, and it's not going to be a good time for you. I doubt it's even possible to win fighting like 5 of them at the same time. speaking of possibilities, there are a ton of different guns to unlock and buy, but your most important companion and weapon will be your dog. Yep, you've been seeing it in the footage, and it's taken me an absurdly long time to mention it, but look at that good boy. This big guy is probably the best dog ever implemented in a virtual reality game. You can pet him, whistle at him to tell him to attack enemies, and also sometimes he pees, which is hilarious. Oh, and your dog can also dig up items for you from time to time. He also functions as an early warning system, growling when he sees an enemy nearby and is ready to attack. I'm honestly not sure why the dog is in this game exactly. The constant companionship makes the whole atmosphere a lot less tense, especially when coupled with the fact that enemies won't surprise you at all because the dog will point them out even if you don't hear or see them yet. You can always choose not to bring the dog if you don't want to though, but it's kind of hard to give up the advantage of having it. So I love the dog, but I'm not exactly sure if they're the best fit for this game. Still, I'd like to see Convergence come a little further along before I really manage to say no to this adorable mug. Still, I don't think I've ever seen a friendly dog in an environment so openly hostile looking as that in this game. Even outside of the underground labyrinths, the sound of gunshots is very common, and so is the chatter on your radio directing various units to go and fight to the death.
Radar detected cultists conducting a ritual in Sector 18. All hunters, stay clear. RRF squads dispatched.
There's stuff floating in the air, and some notes I found talk about aliens and mutants of terrifying caliber. The feeling of Convergence is very bleak. Now, if you want to try this game, keep in mind that Convergence is an early access, and so a ton of enemies, locations, and features are yet to be implemented, and there are a fair amount of bugs and jank to be overcome. If Nick Z's track record will be anything like it was with Paradox of Hope, though, we'll definitely be seeing a lot of fixes, expansions, and improvements coming to Convergence. Hopefully to the combat more than anything. The combat is kind of janky. The enemies are all stiff and unrealistic looking as they switch between animation states and hardly seem to react to the dog biting their crotch. It's early access, you know the drill, but I'm very optimistic that it will get better. If you're interested in picking up this game, it's $19.99 on Steam, and you'd be supporting a solo indie VR developer with a great track record and terrible legal luck. If Warm and Fuzzies aren't enough to get you to fork over $20, and certainly I wouldn't blame you if it wasn't, then I'd recommend waiting to pick this game up, but definitely wishlist it. This is a virtual reality game to watch. There have already been several dev diaries posted to the store page, and after some major updates come in, I'll be sure to post them on this channel. So if you want to hear more about Convergence into the future, be sure to subscribe. As always, I've been Reality Remake. Thanks for watching.